Well, almost one-third of Aussie adults say they will refuse the COVID jab in the latest setback for Australia's vaccine rollout. President of the AMA, Dr Omar Khorshid, is live for us in Perth. Doctor, thanks for your time. Vaccine confidence, we seem to be talking about it all the time. It remains a huge issue.
It does, Ali, particularly when we remember that, of course, vaccination of our whole population is our way out of the pandemic, our pathway back to relatively normal lives. And what we really like to see happening now is a conversation around the level of risk of COVID that is actually still out there in the world. We're by no means free from COVID forever here in Australia. COVID is coming to our shores. It is just a matter of when, and our only way to survive it when it comes is to be vaccinated.
Well, I mean, that's the issue, isn't it? There seems to be no rush because we don't have COVID here, but you have warned, you've said COVID has to come. What do you mean by that? Why does it have to come?
Well, COVID is everywhere throughout the world, and it's present in some communities in extraordinary numbers. And we are a very, very long way away from having our whole world population vaccinated. So for Australia to stay free of COVID, we'd actually have to keep our borders shut for decades. And I don't think any Australian thinks that's a reasonable thing to do, particularly when we actually do have a pathway out of this through vaccination.
We've seen certain states have moved further ahead than others when it comes to vaccinating their population. What are your thoughts on this passport system to allow us to travel interstate? Is that something you'd support?
I think a direct benefit to each Australian who's done the right thing and actually gone and got themselves vaccinated is certainly worth considering. The AMA is supportive of that. Now, the domestic borders are something that has been pretty frustrating, I think, for a lot of Aussies trying to book holidays or travel for business with that risk hanging over their head that border could slam down. And if you knew that having been vaccinated you wouldn't be subject to those sorts of measures, that's a pretty direct benefit that I think will go a long way to assisting especially younger Australians and those planning travel to go out and get themselves vaccinated.
Yeah, tricky and expensive to police, though, that one, I imagine, with state borders. But I know that the AMA's panel of experts, you've come up with a 6-point plan for our borders to open, international borders. Can you just talk me through what that is?
So what we're talking about there is really getting ourselves ready for COVID coming and starting that conversation right now. Now, some of those measures are pretty obvious. We've got to get ourselves vaccinated, and that means waiting for the vaccines to become available and making sure every Australian's gone and done it. But there's other things too. Quarantine in particular is something that we know is going to be necessary for the foreseeable future. Even as we start to open up, it's highly likely that a form of quarantine will be required. So we're saying let's, number one, fix quarantine that's there at the moment. Fix those hotels, get them all up to the same national standard. Then let's go further, look at what alternative facilities are out there already built and that we could use that are better than hotels. And if there's not enough of those, well, let's start that process of building appropriate facilities now so that once we are opening up those borders, whenever that happens to be it end of this year, midway through next year, or even potentially later, at least you've got those facilities in place and we won't be risking the health of vulnerable Australians by opening up.
Well, very interesting.
And the last and perhaps the most important point that we think is we've got to get our public hospital system ready. If we haven't got the hospital system ready, we will not be able to bring anybody into Australia because we won't be able to guarantee the health of our community in the setting of an outbreak.
All right, Dr Omar Khorshid, thanks for your time this morning. We appreciate it.